This is an open letter to Ryan Lochte. Dear Ryan, we've all been there, man. We've all been the guy with the tall tale. Whether it was a swordfish off the coast of Florida that you told everyone was easily the biggest the captain of the charter boat ever saw, but really when you caught it, he got mad at you and told you to throw it back into the water because, quote, I'm embarrassed for you, and I live on a boat. Or like that one guy in high school who told everyone that he had sex with like 3 of the hot cheerleaders, only to be outed as gay his senior year when he was caught making out with Garrett from home ec class. Like, come on, the guy's name was Garrett. Basically, what I'm telling you is you have 2 options. The easiest, and of course the one that would fix the problem immediately, is for you to tell the truth. We know you've been playing second fiddle to the man dolphin known as Michael Phelps your entire career, and we know that, yeah, maybe you would have won more golds if he was out of the picture, but dude, faking a mugging won't make your swim times faster, and going to Brazilian jail for 6 months isn't a great way to train, unless, of course, you're trying to graduate from regular dildos to the ones that look like Coke cans, then, like, definitely not the worst idea, but maybe leave the method acting to Daniel Day-Lewis. The second option is harder, but hear me out. You could beat Michael Phelps. And I know. You're thinking to yourself, but Jake, he's amazingly a somehow less cool Aquaman. There's no way I can beat him. And I agree, but I am not talking about swimming. I'm talking full-on Tanya Harding his ass. Just like the Rio prison yard, you gotta show us you're the dominant one. Not this silver-haired, lying pretty boy douchebag that makes up stories to throw people off the scent of your obvious Phelpsian insecurities. Kick his ass like Ronda Rousey would if she was still relevant. Beat him so bad that Adrian Peterson calls you for tips. But for fuck's sake, man, never forget one thing. The most important thing. Getting raped by Michael Phelps in the pool is better than getting raped by a guy in Rio prison. Love, Jake. Welcome to Riding the Pine, the only show where we write open letters to famous athletes that'll never read them. They just won't read them. So this was all an exercise in futility. Today with me I have John and Lou, the good old boys. That's our name now. We're the good old boys of this show. That's name. Weird. Isn't that like that one, those brothers, those redneck brothers that like jumped cars all the time? Don't worry about what they're called. But so today we have Ryan Lochte news, of course, and we're going to talk about the AFC and NFC North because football is back. Preseason has begun, and there's a lot to discuss. But first, we're going to jump right into this Ryan Lochte story. If you don't know, Ryan Lochte said he got mugged in Rio. Turns out he didn't get mugged in Rio. Turns out he's a douchebag. Lou, you have the scoop.
Okay, so real quick, if we were a Marvel team, like, I don't think we're X-Men Blue Team good, but I mean, we're definitely X-Force good, right? We're like, the 3 of us can be the X-Force, right?
Oh, sure. Can I be Cable?
You can be Cable if I get to be Nightcrawler. No, you know what? I'm more of a cannonball. Definitely. Nobody cares what I have to say. I'm a cannonball. and I'll get killed by issue 12. So, yeah, I'm cannonball.
Can I be Jean Grey?
Those are the only members of X-Force I can name. John, you're Domino. You're the girl.
Well, I said I wanted to be Jean Grey, so I guess I hit the right spot.
Dude, she was in X-Men Gold Team. What are you talking about? X-Force, Jean Grey, Jesus. I think a good place to start, because John, you're the one who exposed me to the original story about the story that Ryan Lochte made up about getting mugged originally. So take us through the chronology. Tell us first, John, before we say what actually happened, tell us what his story was and what his accounts happened the night that he was allegedly robbed.
So his account was that they were, the taxi that they were in was stopped by police officer, or what looked like police officers, and they apparently put them all on the ground, and Ryan Lochte said that he refused to get on the ground until one of the police officers cocked the gun and stuck it to his head. That's what he said occurred.
Okay, so So he's on their splash page right now, if you're watching this. Look at that fucking guy. There's no way that guy stands up to a gun in his face. Come on, Ryan.
And you know what the best part of it is, too, with that whole thing? I mean, we'll talk about this later, how not only does he make up this fantastical story, but he has to, like, stroke his own dick and, like, say how big and badass he is. By default, he's saying, because, John, were there 3 other swimmers with him? Because there were 2 kids that got detained. Okay, so there were 3. So there's 3 other swimmers. By default, by him saying, nah, everybody got on the ground, but I wasn't going to do it, he said, these 3 guys are total pussies, but me, I'm super badass. So by default, he called all of his friends and his teammates pussies. Oh yeah, they got on the ground like little bitches as soon as the cops showed up.
And then he fucking left the country and they're all holding the bag,
this guy's
man.
31, not 17.
This is a 31-year-old man. So what actually happened, so John told the story, this is what happened. So for the past couple days, we all thought Ryan Lochte, despite having mint green hair, wow, pretty fucking cool. Dude stood up to crooked cops. So actually what happens is this. Ryan Lochte, after the medal ceremony, they're done swimming. It's not like they have another meet the next day and they're going out getting plastered. They go out to a party. They get smashed. They wind up at a gas station. The gas station bathroom door, it's one of those places like... It's not a nice Chevron station. It's a Valero. The bathroom is on the outside of the building. You don't go into the Quickie Mart to get to the bathroom. It's one of those kind. And so he comes up. He's trying to open the bathroom door. He ends up kicking it down. A security guard comes over and says, dude, what the fuck? What's wrong with you? Why are you doing that? They end up giving all their cash, apparently, to the security guard. And then they make up a story as to why they got home late and why they didn't have any money left of, oh, hey, we got robbed. I don't see what the end game here was, because nobody would have given a shit if an athlete kicked down a bathroom door. Nobody would have fucking cared, right? Would anybody care if an athlete did a little bit of property damage because he was going to poop his pants if he didn't get into that room? What was the end game?
I have no idea what he was thinking, honestly. John, you live on the coast. You're basically a swimmer. What's going through your head? You're certainly buoyant. It's the beard. It's like the Dead Sea,
I was gonna say,
but on
it's
his
like a
chin.
coral reef is just growing out of his face.
I'm making sure to
but it's so
have
good.
some great radio, and I'm sitting here rubbing my beard as if that means a fucking thing. Let's see.
Well, okay, move closer, and I'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, let me do it too, real quick.
To your,
that's my beard.
to your baby's
my beard.
skin. Anyways, okay, enough beard talk.
It's so bushily.
Bushily.
So John, tell us what ends up happening. So Lochte ends up bailing. He gets out of the country immediately, and two of the and so does one of the other guys. 2 of the swimmers end up getting left in the country. They're getting ready to get on a plane coming back to America, and the cops, the real cops, the ones that don't exist in the imaginary land, they pull these guys off the plane and take their passports? Is that what happened?
Yes, that is what happened.
They detained them?
Yeah, no, when they detained them, they took away their passports, apparently, or at least that's what I read on ESPN this morning. Ryan Lochte was smart to get out of the country, because I doubt he's going to get extradited for something like
definitely.
this.
All he has to do is basically avoid Rio forever, and we all know no Olympics are happening there.
I'll tell you
again.
this though, I think it would have been fucking great if now apparently the 2 kids. Okay, yeah, so the 2 kids who ended up getting pulled off the plane, they've been released and they're on their way back to America, or they're in America now. So they flew back earlier today. What I think would have been great, because the whole time they were sitting here saying, "Hey, look, kids, y'all could be going to jail for a year because you filed a false police report. This isn't okay what you did. You used up police resources to go do this." I thought it would have been awesome if Ryan Lochte would have had to have done like a Ben Affleck like Argo situation and would have had to find a way to get back into the country to then go free his compatriots. I think that would have been awesome to have gotten to see. That would have been a better film than Argo.
How do you think he'd have gotten back in the country, though?
He would have swam, obviously. He would have swam to Brazil.
It's too obvious.
Dude, but Argo had Batfleck.
Yeah, and this would have had minty hair.
And Batfleck is sexier than Lochte. Dude, Lochte looks like a fucking like pixie of a person. You see him when he's like that gif going around of him holding that little I don't know if it's like an arm thing. It's like a metal rod that he fucking flaps, and he's just doing it, and then he turns his face like he's an idiot. And
don't you remember?
Come on,
the
Ryan.
Show that he had?
You're a man.
He had a reality show?
Oh, the guy, yeah. I think it was on E!
about...
The guy is dumber than a box of freaking rocks. I mean, he's just...
Oh, I wish I would have known this.
I mean, he's a swimmer.
And I'm sure some of that gets hammed
Let's
up,
be real.
The guy is he's not an intelligent human being.
Dude, his one marketable skill is he was the
second best swimmer at a time when in any other time in history he would have been the best swimmer.
Probably, but that's like... So? That's like saying that anyone who played with Michael is somehow worse. Like, no, those are real athletes. Like, and don't get me wrong, swimming is very strenuous. It's very hard. It is an athletic sport. But come on, it's swimming. It's not like fucking football. You're a swimmer, Ryan.
Yeah.
Come on.
So, with
swimmer. You're useless on land.
So Ryan Lochte ends up making up this ridiculous story. He has apologized now, and it's all been cleared up. But, you know, I go back to the best part of this thing being he had to make himself look like a total Was he trying to get with some chicks back at the Olympic Village? Is that what this was? Is that why he made up this story? Or I just don't see what his end game was going to be. You're out of cash, so what? 20% of America is too. I mean, they don't make up a story about getting robbed by the police, so I just don't understand where he thought this was going to go. I just don't understand how he thought this was going to be a thing. But
why even, like, I don't understand the end game at all. Like, what was to gain? Was it embarrassing?
That he kicked down a door or he was going to poop?
Like, arrested, I guess?
He didn't even get arrested. He just paid off a security guard. Here's the thing that I wonder with this, though, and Nick Wright was on Colin Cowherd and brought up a really good point on this, I think it was yesterday. If this had been, say this wasn't Ryan Lochte, say this was the men's basketball team. Yeah, say this was Carmelo. Say this was Draymond Green. Yeah. Say this was DeAndre Jordan who did this. This would have been not something that we're all laughing about and making fun of.
Draymond would have been a bigger shitstorm. This would have been a
gigantic.
Draymond would have been a
gigantic shitstorm. This would have been something, as Nick Wright put it, the president would have had to have gotten involved. Like Barack Obama would have had to have made a statement about this. If
I don't know if it's that important. He may have made a joke about it because he's our cool hip prez for the next 60 days or something. But
don't you think that if this would have been a basketball player, this
I don't know,
would have been a much
it would have
bigger
been
deal?
Yeah, no, yeah, because they are effective on any terrain.
Oh, okay.
Like not just like they could play water basketball and Carmelo could still drain it from 45 feet. I'm just saying, like, Ryan Lochte is. If it was Michael Phelps even, it would have been a big deal. But it's Ryan Lochte, who's kind of like it's like if fucking, I don't know, Teddy Bridgewater did
Dennis
a thing.
Rodman.
Or yeah, well no, Dennis Rodman we gave a shit about because he was entertaining.
I mean, he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Well, he was the worm.
Ryan Lochte has 12
Olympic
championships.
How many of those are because of Michael Phelps, though? How many of those were like men's relays where there were multiple people there? How many of those are because Phelps carried him?
They've only been in like what?
I have no idea. I watch real sports. I have no idea.
It's only been 2 Olympics.
I've ever talked about swimming in my life. I have no idea.
Honestly, I don't care about this very much. I think it's hilarious. I wouldn't care about this, whoever it was. It would have to be like Joe Biden or higher for me to be like, oh yeah, that's important.
I would expect this kind of thing out of Joe Biden. 100% seriously.
Oh no, Joe would be there, and they'd come up to him and be like, what are you doing, man? He's like, I just got to kick down the door to get shit. I'm Uncle Joe! And they're like, you know what, Uncle Joe? You go for it. Go take a shit. And then while he's taking a shit, he asks the security guard for weed. And then they share a blunt. That's how Uncle Joel rolls. Did you see what he got Barack Obama for his birthday? A friendship bracelet. I'm not making that up.
I wish
It said Joe and Barack forever.
I wish I had a friend that would give me friendship
That's so great,
bracelets.
dude.
I really do.
Dude, I want to be friends with Joe Biden. Like 8 years ago, I thought Joe Biden, and now I'm like, Joe Biden. He can rub my shoulders inappropriately
So here's
in public.
the big question
I don't
on
care.
this for Lochte. Does Lochte end up like, one, does he end up living this down? Like, does this ever go away? Do people ever just eventually
No.
say, whatever, we don't care anymore?
Nah.
One, does he ever live this down? And two, if he doesn't, does he make money off of this? Like, is there a way, how, we're entrepreneurs here. How can he market this thing and make money off of it? What could he, like, what kind of commercial sponsorships could he do that would be a play on him lying to the police? Like, would he do, like, would it be like bail bonds commercials or what?
He'd have to go... No. Well, no. He'd have to go to Rio, turn himself in, go to jail for a little bit, and then sell T-shirts locked up. But Lochte...
That's good.
Yeah, locked it up.
That's good.
I know. Like, come to me for marketing advice. Also, TM. If that happens, I get
we
residuals.
just totally trademarked that, and we're a communist show, so I get a third of it. Dom gets nothing.
That's more socialism than whatever.
Shut up.
Anyway, we wouldn't have marketed it if it was communist. Anyway, Economics 101,
Marxist.
Lewis.
No, I think he'll eventually live this down. I think that people won't care eventually, but it really is incredible.
Eventually, I don't care now.
Well, it's
We're
incredible
talking
that the
about
Olympics
this,
aren't that the Olympics aren't going to punish him for it. Like the International Olympic Committee isn't going to say you can't compete in the Olympics anymore. Again, to quote Nick Wright, he said they're treating it like the dude peed in the pool. They're not treating it like he actually committed a crime. They're just treating it like he said, yeah, fuck it, man. It means nothing to him. And John made the point. He's a 31-year-old dude who pulled this shit. Man. That's older than me, and I wouldn't do this kind of thing. If I'm the bar for whether something's a good idea or not, we are fucked as a species. So,
right. And didn't you buy you bought a computer part from a lady
Yeah.
that bought a kangaroo? So,
and I don't feel any remorse about that. I would feel remorse about kicking down a bathroom door.
That's a real story.
By the way,
Yeah, that's a real story. I didn't make that one up.
That's property damage.
Hey, by the way, just so you know, Lou, 7 of his 11 total medals are individual, making him the second most.
4 of them aren't.
Making him the second most decorated individual swimmer, only behind Phelps.
Yeah, but still swimmer.
Huh.
No,
what did
Spitz had.
Spitz win in?
He was a swimmer, but he had 6.
I thought he was a swimmer.
Yeah.
What? That's it? I could go win a fucking medal in something that doesn't require athleticism
All
or
right.
skill.
Well, Ryan Lochte, you're a fucking idiot, and you're never gonna live this
That's
down.
why I say though that he's the Dennis Rodman of swimming.
I agree.
Because he's one of the best.
Yeah, well, Dennis Rodman rebounded the fuck out of the ball. He was an all-hustle player. I love you, Dennis. Like, when you were with Detroit, you were just great. But holy shit, did you fall off that wagon.
And Lochte
right
is
into the
never
crazy
gonna
pit.
marry a Carmen Electra. He's never gonna. Who would be today's Carmen Electra?
I
like
hope
Tara
so.
Reid?
No.
He's never gonna marry Tara Reid.
Whoever he marries is going to be a dude. He's a swimmer. It's fine. I'm okay with that. But let's be real, Ryan. Just come out. That's how you make money now. You gotta suck dicks at this point. Because no one cares about you. You're going to have to be the cute gay boy next door that swims a lot real fast. Because,
I think I get where you're going. You're going.
You can't
with
marry a supermodel. No one will care.
gay. Gay is what you're saying, right?
You'll just be.
That's where you're going with this joke, right? Yeah, I know, but it's.
I said
but
that.
Since then, it's
Didn't I
just
say
been
the word
like
gay? You gotta come out. You gotta marry a dude.
Okay, there you go.
You gotta be homosexual.
So he could turn that
and then
into
we'll care
another
about you
reality
again.
show, and they could call that one "What Else Would Ryan Lochte Do?" or "Who Else Would Ryan Lochte Do?"
The answer is dudes. Because, let's be real. If Ryan Lochte marries some cheerleader off of, the Cowboys, no one gives a fuck. That's what's expected of him.
And marries
But if
Tony
he goes
Romo.
out and lands Lance Bass.
Yeah.
Tony Romo. He nailed Jessica Simpson in her prime, dude. Can we give Romo props for that? Oh, man. Jessica Simpson in her prime. She's still not bad looking. She's just a little dumb. Anyways, I'm also not willing to give that guy from 98 Degrees any pass because he was 90s good looking. Antonio Romo is just everyman good looking.
Tony Romo's not good looking.
So he took one. He won for us. You are just as good looking as Tony Romo.
Hey.
You're just a normal looking, good You're a normal good-looking level. Like, this is the kind of level we expect in society. Not Walmart, but like whatever.
I'm okay
like
with
Costco.
Target. I'm okay
So
with
whatever's
Target.
above Walmart.
Yeah.
Kroger, Target, yeah, one of those. So yeah, you're that guy. Lochte is a little bit better than that, but he's not. He's a swimmer though. Like,
I'm okay with that. Nobody kills them.
Anyways,
nobody kills
moving
themselves
on to
at Target. I'm okay with that. Nobody makes crystal meth at Target.
They do yell about trans bathrooms though. Anyways, let's move on to a real sport, one with a foot and a ball. Hand egg, if you will, to the NFC and AFC North, where football goes to be slow-paced and defensive because it's in the North and it's super cold, and the passing game's shut down unless you're inside. So we can start with the AFC North, I think.
Because you said it.
Because it has RG3 in it, and I'm excited to talk about RG3. Yeah, and also because I said it. I dictate how this works. But obviously, we've been going with the winners of the division first and moving down to the last place. And the winner of the division last year at 12-4 were the Cincinnati Bengals? What? So the Cincinnati Bengals, how do you guys feel about this team? Now, their draft was boring as fuck. Let's be real. And their roster is also boring as fuck. They're just kind of that team. It just sort of... They're like the plucky go-getters of the AFC North, and no one really cares because Andy Dalton is the least consistent, and AJ Green's fun to watch, but everything else is boring.
They're the Larry.
How do you feel about the Cincinnati Bengals?
They're the Larry Brown-led Pistons of the NFL. They don't have.
Well, no, the Pistons were good.
Well, yeah, but they do not have a super duper star on the team. I'm not going to put AJ Green in the top five wide receivers in the NFL. I'm certainly not going to put.
He's knocking on the door. There. Let's be real.
You know, and the same with Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's not in the top 7 quarterbacks in the NFL, but he's certainly knocking on the door. I mean, putting him at 10 isn't unheard of. I think a big part of their success last year, obviously, was obviously in the tight end game with Eifert. Just completely, where the hell did he come from? Completely changed the game for him. Sanu was really productive last year, but they weren't blowing people out. You know, they weren't going out there and dropping 35 a game. Their defense.
I'm worried about their passing game this year, though. Their number 2 option is Tyler Eifert. Their number 3 is Brandon LaFell.
Well, actually, no. Their number 3, if you look at it from the past couple of years, their number 3 is going to be Giovanni Bernard, catching a bunch of balls.
I mean, yeah, maybe, but he's not the downs 1 and 2 back. So he's your third down running back, and he does all right. But you know, that's that two-headed monster is not helping you get first downs unless you're on third down. So, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't look good. I would expect Andy Dalton to regress severely just based on the weapons around. He doesn't have Marvin Jones or Mohamed Sanu anymore.
But here's the question about that: who else in the AFC North got significantly better this year?
I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are the only ones that can really knock on the door. But again, they have issues with weed apparently in that fucking locker room. Everyone just wants to smoke.
Which there is news today. Le'Veon Bell got his suspension reduced by 1 game, so he will only be missing the first 3 games of the season instead of 4.
3 games? Oh, good for Randy in our football league.
Good for Le'Veon Bell too.
Le'Veon Bell. That's good, I guess. Did they decide that he smoked more or less weed? I don't. Why does that matter? I don't know. Anyways, we talked about weed last time, but this team regressed. Meaning, I think the Steelers were good last year. Were better than this team last year, but they lost Big Ben kind of a lot. So if he stays healthy, this team should be far better. It's just how it works. They have way better. They have the 2 most dangerous weapons in the league at any given time, and that's including D'Angelo Williams when Bell's gone. D'Angelo Williams is a fucking monster sometimes.
Back last
it's crazy.
Year.
Amazing.
But I really think a lot of Cincinnati's success last year going 12-4 came from the fact that Big Ben was out for multiple games, right?
I'd say so. I mean, obviously that only affects Cincinnati twice, but I think their success as far as the standings are concerned, because I think they were an 11 or 12 win team for sure. But I also think that the Steelers.
So I apologize.
Were
I probably wasn't clear
team.
in the way that I said it, but that's where I was going with it. Is I think that 12-4 wasn't good enough if Ben Roethlisberger stayed healthy.
Yeah. Right. I mean, they would have swapped.
And so that's where my next thing. So I think that Pittsburgh is most likely going to take the North. I'll just jump the gun on that now and say it. I don't necessarily know that Cincinnati is going to get the wild card spot, especially with Indianapolis getting some help back with Andrew Luck being healthy again. So
yeah,
the Raiders in the West. We got
the
Buffalo
Raiders,
in
Kansas
the East.
City.
That's the thing. There's not another team in the AFC South that's going to take a wild card spot. I mean, whoever wins the AFC South is going to be their only rep. The West, in the AFC West, you're going to have a wild card team.
Well, no. I could see the Jets or the Bills.
But in the AFC
Jets
East,
really
you're not going to. No, I'm just talking about the South. Right. But in the AFC East, you're probably not going to see two teams because you're going to have Brady. That all depends. It depends on how the Patriots do their first 4 weeks. If they're playing from behind,
you could have 2 10-win teams there.
Right, but if you have 2 12-win teams coming out of the North, if you have two 10 or 12-win teams coming out of the North, I'm going to have to say that I would still give it to the Bengals taking the wild card for sure. I would say the Bengals and the Chiefs are going to be 2 wild card teams this year.
I say they have a good shot for sure, but let's be real. The Raiders are definitely going to be knocking on that door. The Colts should be better, and the Houston Texans only got to win one more game with Brock Lobster to get 10 wins. So it's not out of the question that the Bengals could be out this year. They are still a very good team. I don't know if they're a 12-win team. They're a 10 or 11-win team. I haven't looked at their schedule, though. That could be totally different. But they still have this kind of... My big thing is, remember the playoff game last year? Just headhunting. They still have that group.
Zero discipline on that team.
Say what you will.
Marvin Lewis has instilled no discipline.
It's still led by Marvin Lewis. It's still got like Vontez Burfict, Adam Jones. You got Ray Melaleuga, just Drake Kirkpatrick, who I do like as a cornerback, but still they're very physical and they try to rip your head off, which is a good mentality, but not when you put your team in jeopardy. And they did that a lot last year. And Tyler Eifert should definitely regress along with Dalton. But I would say, based upon AJ Green's skill set and as a Lions fan, I've seen this kind of offense before. Sans probably, I think they're going to run better. Expect AJ Green to do as good or better than last year because they're going to Megatron him a lot. He might not get a ton of catches. He may actually get like 15 to 20 fewer catches, but his yards per attempt are going to be ridiculous because they're going to need to move the ball. I'll be very surprised if with Brandon LaFell as your number 2 wide receiver that they don't throw a lot of streaks and posts to AJ Green. So if you have AJ Green, great. He's probably, I don't know. They use him as the wide receiver one.
He's a low-end wide receiver one for most leagues. He's definitely going to be a low-end wide receiver
Standard
one.
leagues are rough.
No, for
Standard
a PPR league,
rough.
sorry. I kind of assume that everybody plays PPR leagues nowadays.
Because you're advanced, like us. I agree with you. Tyler Eifert, though, that production's ridiculous. I can't imagine.
Now now you did touch on that.
Should we move on to Pittsburgh?
You did touch on that real quick though. Because we did bring up Marvin Lewis. I mean, realistically, let's say these guys, whether they win the division or they make it into the wild card, whatever, and they lose in the opening round, whatever their first game is, whether they have a first week bye or whether they're playing on the road in a wild card game. Marvin Lewis, if he ends up being 10-0 after this season in the playoffs, never winning a playoff game with this team.
You mean 0
excuse me, 0-10, excuse me.
10-0 would be brilliant.
If he were 0-10 with the Bengals in the playoffs, he's got to go, right? He cannot be the coach anymore, correct?
I don't know.
Okay, let me ask you this.
That's the thing.
Has there
about,
ever been
about
another
coaching?
coach
I don't know that he gets
afforded that kind of luxury?
Hold on. Did he get out coached last year? I don't think so.
Yes,
I feel like they lost because the fucking. No, I feel like the players went out and made fucking mental errors trying to rip the heads
That's
off.
Coaching.
Now
that is coaching.
You're gonna say that's coaching.
Coaching discipline in your guys.
He's the head coach. The defensive coordinator stays with them way more. So I don't know. I'm just saying, while their discipline it's not as bad as like a Marty Morningweg led team or Jim Tom Sula. You know what I mean? He's a quality coach. If you're firing a coach, you got to say to me as a fan and as a player, I'm going to go get someone better. Who do you get? Marvin Lewis is the guy right now. And if some wonderkind comes out of college and you want to revamp the offense and you think, AJ Green, Andy Dalton, Tyler Eifert, and your running backs, Gio Bernard probably, those are who you're working around, you're going to try this West Coast offense or something. Great. Then you bring that guy in, but who is that? I don't think they're going out and getting him. You know what I mean? Marvin Lewis he's kind of like Jeff Fisher. Let's be real. He's always going to be solid. It's not going to be exciting, but he's not inept. He's a good coach. And let's be real. If he had a better quarterback, he would probably have been over the hump several times.
You fire him, you get rid of him because the guy hasn't been able to get it done in big games in the playoffs. He hasn't. In fact, they haven't even been competitive in the playoffs. You fire him and you go get David Shaw. You throw a shitload of money at David Shaw at Stanford. He's really very similar to Marvin Lewis in the sense that he does teach this really, rough style, tough defense. He tells his guys to go out there and knock somebody's head off. So he's got that intensity and he brings that, but the guy is going to have a much more apt offense and much more apt play calling. At least you've got to take the play calling responsibilities away from Marvin Lewis this season. But if he doesn't, no, you go and you get David Shaw. There's no reason for David Shaw still to be in college. Get him up to the NFL. He runs a pro style system there with Stanford. Get him out of the Pac-12. It's a fucking joke of a conference. Get him up into the NFL. That's the guy you go get.
John, I'd like to get your input on this. John, do you feel that Marvin Lewis can get over the hump ever, or do you think he's like the team's maybe success is kind of the product of him and not necessarily like the quarterbacks, where he had a very underwhelming Carson Palmer for a few years, and then now he's got Andy Dalton, who, let's be real, he's basically a better thrower, but he's Ryan Tannehill that has
I
think
that's
weapons.
Actually a really good way to put it, and I think that Andy Dalton is what is going to keep them. I don't think it's Marvin Lewis. I think that he's stuck with a huge price tag, and part of that price tag is, well, this is my guy for better or worse. And he's clearly a good regular season quarterback. I mean, 12-4. Every team wants to do that every year. He folds.
And this past season, you can't put that on him because he broke his finger in week 16, so he didn't play in the playoffs. So.
Right, of course. So now, here's the thing. I will say I like your idea of Shaw. I do. But if I'm a fan of the NFL, like I am, I don't want him going to a team that just won 12 games. I want him going to a team that needs help. Like, get that guy, I don't know. I'm just looking at
you say that, but I mean, John Fox goes out and wins 13 games with the Broncos. They lose in the playoffs. They fire him. They bring in Kubiak.
That's because John Elway is a badass and he can do whatever he wants. I'm saying, like, get that guy over to the Cleveland Browns or the Indianapolis Colts or the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Tennessee Titans and get that kind of offense with these up-and-coming teams that have a lot of potential and see what the guy can do. I'm more for that than I am for take over this boring-ass Cincinnati Bengals team.
But that's what Stanford is. Stanford is a boring-ass, defensive-heavy, pro-style offense team.
No, I get you.
I mean, he'd be the perfect fit in Cincinnati.
Yeah, but I don't like Cincinnati. Let's make another one of these cool teams. Andy Dalton's at his ceiling. Like, this is what Andy Dalton is. He's never going to be better than this. This is just the guy he is. Last year was his best year, probably ever, from an efficiency standpoint, just a quarterbacking standpoint. I don't know about fantasy-wise, but I think 2 years.
Okay, and Trent Dilfer has a Super Bowl ring. What's your point? I mean, you don't have to be Brett Favre or Joe Montana to go out there and win a Super Bowl. You have to have a coach who's going to instill some discipline and just be able to make rational decisions in the playoffs.
But looking at this team, like, who's their biggest playmaker outside of AJ Green, and not even on just offense, like defense too? Geno Atkins.
Yeah, probably.
Like,
Geno Atkins is probably the most high profile guy on the team. Yeah, you're right. That's why I made the comparison. They're the Larry Brown led Pistons.
It's just so like, I just let this stew with Marvin Lewis until it's just really in the dumps. Then get rid of the guy and then just revamp with someone exciting, because Marvin Lewis is going to get a job somewhere else and just keep another team in a mediocrity. Just keep it in Cincinnati, please. Moving on to something that's way more exciting is Pittsburgh. God damn, I love watching their offense. Holy shit. And not just because I have Antonio Brown on my team, who is the best wide receiver in all the land and hails from Central Michigan University in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, which buddy Sean graduated from there, and now he's in sports medicine. Good for that guy. Pittsburgh Steelers with a healthy Ben Roethlisberger. I think they're my favorites. We already talked about this. They're my favorites to win the AFC North, and if he stays healthy, they're up there with the Super Bowl
I
run.
fully agree.
Like, let's be real.
Fully agree. Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's I think Pittsburgh, because of Tom Brady's suspension, I think Pittsburgh is not only the team to beat in the North, obviously, for the AFC. I think they're the team to beat in the AFC.
Yeah. I'd say so. I would not be surprised if they came away with 13 wins.
You say that. I mean, yeah, they're the team to beat. That being said, I mean, I can't say who would win. I mean, Tom Brady missing 4 games at the beginning of the year has nothing to do with how they're going to be able to do in the playoffs and whether or not they make it past. That being said, I mean, the Patriots and I agree. Patriots and Steelers is probably your AFC Championship game this year. I absolutely agree.
I mean, they got this young guy, Sammy Coates, as wide receiver. Have you seen this kid? The dude can fucking ball. And we thought, like, oh, they lost Martavis Bryant. This is a big deal. They have Marcus Wheaton now. I mean, now Sammy Coates comes onto the scene. These guys have 4 to 5 legitimate threats through the air, not including Le'Veon
Ben Roethlisberger
Bell.
has to have the easiest job in the
nuts.
NFL. Considering how difficult it is to be an elite quarterback, to be any quarterback, but to be an elite quarterback, he's got to have the easiest job in the NFL. He is the polar opposite of Tom Brady. Tom Brady has to come in and make these nobodies like Keyshawn Johnson look like superstars out there. Ben Roethlisberger can go the Cheeseburger Rivers route and just show up to practice drunk, and he's still going to complete 75% of his passes. I mean, it's incredible the setup he's got. I mean, he doesn't have talent like RG3's got talent, but
no.
Which, by the way, hey, so RG3, Terrell Pryor. I mean, that connection, that's a thing, right? We've seen it in 2 preseason games already now. So it's a thing,
Can we talk
right?
about that later when it's relevant? I agree with you. It looks fun. The Browns are going to be one of those teams where you just kind of sit on the over/under and see what happens, because it could literally be anything.
They're
the most interesting team this year, I think, because it looks like they have big play capabilities. Like, they're just going to blow the top off of plays every once in a while. Like 2 or 3 times a week, 80-yard touchdown passes are an ideal that could happen. Like, or a huge run from RG3 or something, or Duke Johnson Jr. And then all the other times they're just gonna fucking stagnate. It's gonna be such a bipolar offense. It's gonna be super interesting to watch. I'm really excited about it. But let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers for a little bit longer. Don't blow your wad already. All over
edging
RG3
on
like I
Pittsburgh
want to.
so hard right now, dude.
Is Marcus Wheaton a viable fantasy starter? And now, granted, in our league we have 3 wide receivers. This is an obvious yes. He is, in our league specifically. But in a standard league where maybe it could be PPR, but 2 wide receivers, standard setup, Marcus Wheaton, and not just bye weeks. I'm talking like, can you start this tandem and still get good output if you wait on him? Because he's probably a good value if he's productive, right?
Jake, let me put it to you this way. Do you think, when answering the question, can he be a starting wide receiver in either a PPR or a standard league, do you think he has as much talent as Martavis Bryant?
I don't think he has as much talent as Martavis Bryant. However, I do think that he will benefit from having a million weapons around him and being open all the time. I think this is going to be a wide open situation where, like last year, for instance, Martavis Bryant only had 50 receptions, 765 yards, 6 touchdowns.
Which is stupid.
Right
that's
there, the yards
11%
and the touchdowns
of his catches were for touchdowns. That is stupid.
Right. And consider this: Antonio Brown had 122 receptions or something like this. It was nuts. So that he's still able to get this kind of production as the number 2 wide receiver in the offense. And granted, he didn't have Ben Roethlisberger throwing him the ball. Actually, he had 136 receptions last year. Holy shit, Antonio Brown. Anyways, God, he's a monster. This wide receiver had Dan fucking Lefevre as a quarterback at Central Michigan and made Dan Lefevre get drafted to the Colts in 2010. This is how good this fucking wide receiver is. Do you even know who Dan Lefevre is? See? Like, I got drafted because of this wide receiver. This is just nuts. So yeah, I don't know. I think Marcus Wheaton, if he's a very late pick,
are you taking him over Tyler Lockett? I mean, the answer is yes, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Tyler Lockett from the Seattle Seahawks, I think, is a bust waiting to happen. He might have 1 or 2 good games where he has a nice breakout. I think Doug Baldwin's a bust. Let's be real. His production's impossible to keep up with.
It's impossible.
13, 14 touchdowns last year?
It's so hard to keep up with him because he'll have a game with 3 touchdowns and then he'll go 4 weeks without getting more than 2 catches. He's so hard to hard to play.
Consistency is crazy. You got to play the odds on that one and just decide that, well, I'm gonna roll with Doug fucking Baldwin, I guess. But yeah, I love the Steelers this year a lot. I really like entire defense as well. Maybe with the exception of their cornerbacks. Ross Cockrell is their right side cornerback, and I don't know who the fuck that guy is. So could be all sorts of different stuff. But I like their defense. They've always had a pretty good defense. And of course, Ben Roethlisberger is just an Iron Man when he's out there mostly. And if he can keep his dick in his pants and remain consensual with all the ladies, then I think they'll have a pretty good season.
Do we have to talk about Baltimore? Oh.
Yeah, well, I mean, they drafted Ronnie Stanley and who I think is the second round's best player, Kamale Correa, the defensive end out of Michigan State. I think that good dude can fucking ball. But yeah, the Ravens, other than that, are very uninspiring. Is Joe Flacco elite?
Oh, can we talk about that for the next year?
Is Joe Flacco
Thank you. You know what's going to suck?
Can we talk about that for
bad?
5 minutes?
You know what's going to suck so bad? When Joe Flacco retires, ESPN is going to look at themselves and say, how the fuck are we going to fill time now? What are we going to do to fill time? Like, Ryan Lochte isn't funny anymore. No one cares. Like, Manti Te'o is out of the league by now, so no one gives a shit. Which, by the way,
he's got a real girlfriend.
Yeah, which, by the way, there's a lot of testimony coming in from Manti Te'o's girlfriend that she saw Ryan Lochte got mugged. So she saw it, man. But no, I see these guys.
Wow.
This is gonna be a 7-9 team. They're gonna have some talent. Steve Smith is gonna go out there and he's gonna catch
7.
He's gonna catch what, 8 touchdowns?
Some balls and pneumonia because he's so old.
But I don't see. You know, I think that there's a couple of guys here. I think that Allen can be a quality mid-tier running back too, but I don't see
Javarius Allen over Justin Forsett. Well,
yeah, but Justin Forsett, we don't know if he's going to start the first 4 games, right? He's still hurt.
I mean, that's fair. I don't know.
His knee was blown into oblivion.
Yeah, I don't know. Javarius Allen could be a terrible pick, but it has an upside thing.
He can be a mid-tier. He can be a mid-tier running back too. Obviously, if Forsett comes back and Forsett is at Forsett quality, you know, the same thing happened to him. What happened to Jamal Charles? Unfortunately, it happened significantly later in the year. So we don't know if he's going to be 100% coming back at the beginning of the season. I don't see any real standouts from a fantasy standpoint. I don't see it, with the exception of maybe Justin Tucker, their kicker. I don't see any standouts on this team.
Tucker could have a good season for a kicker. That's true. Kamar Aiken is probably a viable flex wide receiver on most. He's going to be the number 1 option on that whole team. So just being a number 1 option with a quarterback that isn't, you know, a Browns quarterback or totally. Flacco's not great. But Kamar Aiken can get the ball, and I feel like they're going to use Steve Smith like they use Larry Fitzgerald in Arizona out of the slot, which makes a lot more sense for him. So I would not be surprised if they could move the ball a little bit. It's not going to be as boring as some of these other teams, but I don't know. I'm not picking any of these players high at all. Flacco is like a desperation bye-week quarterback or quarterback number 2 in your
he's
QB
not a
league.
Desperation. In our league, he's going to be considering how many quarterbacks are probably going to get kept? 4? Cam, Russell.
It was like 6.
6 are going to end up getting kept. If those guys are keepers, then actual draft, Flacco will be he'll be the 7th quarterback taken in our league.
I guess maybe that makes him the 13th best overall fantasy quarterback. I'm happy with. You know what? I am wildly ecstatic for you to pick Joe Flacco in our fantasy draft. Please do.
I'm not saying I'm going to. I'm telling you that he will end up being the 7th quarterback taken.
No. Please, by all means, if he's sitting there ripe for the picking, I just pluck him for us.
No, because I won't be doing that because Derrick Henry will still be available, and I'll be taking Derrick Henry.
But yeah, I'm not a fan of Flacco.
Shit,
he's not efficient enough. He's Flacco. He's not elite. He's an average quarterback. He had one good year, just like Andy Dalton, and everyone went cuckoo, and they won a Super Bowl because they had an amazing defense. This is like he Brock Lobstered. Brock Lobster rode the bench to a contract while Peyton Manning and a defense won him a Super Bowl. It's like, it just bothers me.
Did you hear that,
now,
ESPN?
I will
he's not
say
elite.
He's not.
We've settled the issue, and it never needs to be talked about again, ever again, ESPN. He's not elite. We have settled the issue here on RTP.
I will say, he is basically a less efficient Alex Smith. Let's be real. He takes some more shots, but stats-wise, that's what you're looking at. So if that's the guy you want on your fantasy team, fucking go for it. Have fun. Enjoy your white bread, grilled cheese, and your glass of water and pretzels for lunch every day for the next 30 years. Enjoy driving to work in your fucking Prius, listening to fucking smooth jazz. Enjoy your penny loafers and your button-up polos, because that's the type of fucking player those people pick. Boring people. Take a fucking shot, man. I'm going to end up with fucking Flacco because of this tirade. I just know it. He's just going to fucking fall to me, and I'm going to be like,
So, okay, well, let me ask you this.
Okay,
well, then here, let's go with this then. Who are you taking? Who's a better pick? You've got to pick your second quarterback. You've got to take a second quarterback off the board. Who are you taking, RG3 or Flacco? Obviously Flacco, right?
Oh, I go RG3.
Really?
Only, for two reasons. And I'll tell you why. Number one, I just went on a tirade about Joe Flacco, and now my credibility is at stake. But number two, and the real reason is, the number two reason is Joe Flacco is more expensive. Is pick-wise. They're not in the same bracket. You're taking RG3 at the end of the draft. It's a value upside pick that I'd rather make in a one-quarterback league than Joe Flacco when there's other players available that I would rather have.
So
that's
so
why.
John, will
now,
you answer the question?
In a two-quarterback league, in our league, Flacco is he's definitely a better quarterback than RG3, probably. RG3 has the legs, so he could score an extra 50 points on the ground if he gets 500 rushing yards. That's huge because that makes up for a lot of bullshit through the air. And he could, rush for some touchdowns. But I don't know if they're going to be in the red zone enough for RG3 to score on the ground enough. John, yeah.
I'll answer the question. I have no problem answering the question. I'm going to take Dak Prescott for when Tony Romo inevitably goes down in week 3 and avoid both of those, that entire landmine.
And you guys know how hard I have been for Dak Prescott all preseason. I have been all over this kid. He's not good enough to ever start a quarterback controversy as long as Tony Romo is still on the team. But as soon as Tony Romo steps away and into that ambulance in week 3 after his knee is blown apart, I am. If you're a Cowboys fan, and God, this is the most depressing thing I could possibly say, you've got to be really excited about your backup quarterback if you're a Cowboys fan right now.
I didn't know Dak Prescott was a good-looking tattooed black man. I thought he was a white
he's
boy.
Delicious. Yeah, he went to Mississippi State. Oh my God, yeah, he is just a dreamboat.
He's like Godiva chocolate. Why does this always descend into homoeroticism?
I would say he's
every time.
He's so much more mocha. He's so much more.
No.
Yeah, because he's creamy.
Look at
he's
okay,
creamy.
Hold on. He's also very, very symmetrical. I will have you know. So I'm just saying, look at that real quick. That's in his undies, and ooh boy, good for you, Dak. He looks athletic. Is he a running quarterback? I don't know. He just looks more athletic than Tony Romo's.
He runs,
dad
but he's not fast run. I mean, they would run. They run.
Yeah. He looks
at Mississippi State. They would run the screen and the option, and he was a guy who could get up and down the field. Was he like Johnny Manziel darting in between people? No, but he would take off. He was a running quarterback in the sense that Steve Young was a running quarterback.
Fair enough. Johnny always reminded me of a squirrel, by the way. You know when squirrels get on the field and the security team chases them around? That's what Johnny reminded me of in college.
Except the squirrel had a whole bunch of cocaine.
Wow. I'm surprised. I didn't know anything about Dak Prescott, really, except that he was, I think, the 5th quarterback on the board, maybe 6th, during the draft. And this guy's a straight-up athlete. I'm actually really surprised.
Yeah, I didn't know much about him
you're
either.
in good hands, Cowboys. At least from a marketing standpoint.
I mean, this is what blows my mind. How could you not know anything about him? He's an SEC quarterback. What else is there worth knowing about?
No one gives a shit.
Why else would you?
No one gives a shit. John, please finish your thought.
I didn't know anything about him either until I got to watch the second quarter of the Miami and Cowboys preseason game, and even though Miami's offense actually looked pretty good this time, Lou, Dak Prescott was basically just disassembling whoever was on the field for the defense. So,
in fairness, the Dolphins were going up against the Cowboys' second team. In fairness, that's why they looked. That's why they looked tolerable.
That's some shade.
That's why they looked tolerable. And that's the Cowboys' second team defense, the worst defense in the league. That's their second team.
That's shade.
Dude.
Shade, bro. I think the Saints were worse last year.
That's not shade. I just blew up the fucking sun, bro. That's dark side of the moon right there.
Jesus Christ. You're such a douchebag.
I am. I'm such a douche. No, you're right.
Anyways, how did we get on Dak Prescott?
He's just so creamy and delicious.
We just swooned about a guy. Because
I said I was going to draft him to avoid the entire Flacco RG3.
Oh, that's right. Because John bullshitted out of my question.
Honestly, Lou, the answer for me is I take Flacco because he's a known quantity.
Yeah, I'd say it's a safer bet. I'm just saying I'm not willing to pay the Flacco price. So however you want to do your draft strategy is fine. Flacco's not. He's honestly, unless he falls farther than I think he's going to fall,
Prescott.
Probably not worth the pick if you're especially in a 1-quarterback league. Dak Prescott, sexy as fuck. Anyways. To the Cleveland Browns, who had like the most picks in a draft ever, I think. No, I'm kidding. I don't know how many picks they had. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. They had 14 picks in the draft. That's crazy. They did pick Corey Coleman, who I like. They picked Emmanuel Ogbah, who I like. And they picked Cody Kessler, who, that poor boy. But, They're the Browns. That's it. That's the end of They're the Browns. They're going to be bad. They're always going to be bad. They went 3-13 last year. I think they have the potential because they don't. They're probably going to have stability at the quarterback position this year with RG3, and Josh McCown's behind him. So if Josh McCown's your number 2, you're in good shape. I think, not as your number 1. So RG3 looks good this preseason so far. He's got his feet underneath him. He looks enthusiastic. And we know the dude can ball when he's healthy and enthusiastic. So I'm hoping for a slight resurgence. I would expect him to be in the bottom of like the 22nd quarterback overall, fantasy-wise. Is probably a really comfortable place for him to be. He has the potential to be a top 15, but I really doubt it, and that's only through the ground if they really like work a read option really well or something. I'm talking like Kaepernick numbers. When Kaepernick was good. Terrell Pryor is your fucking number 2 wide receiver, and the rookie Corey Coleman is your number 1. Isaiah Crowell and Duke Johnson is your 2-headed monster. This is not a good offense. They have a pretty good line, though. I will say that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, Hugh Jackson is going to be able to
Gary
do...
Barnidge?
Yeah, I mean, Gary Barnidge was your poor man's Tyler Eifert, who was your poor man's Gronkowski last year. Hugh Jackson's going to be able to do things with this team, but do you legitimately see him being able to overcome the level of just not even coaching ability that you have in Tomlin or Marvin Lewis, but just the talent that those teams have? They're light years ahead. They've both got their franchise quarterbacks. RG3 may turn into that guy. I'm not betting on it, but he might be. So we got to wait and see what's going to happen there. The Browns, I mean, if the Browns can win 7 games, I will consider them wildly successful this year.
I agree.
You're right. I don't see them winning more than
I don't
5.
either.
I'm just saying if they can win 7, they will blow all expectations out of the water.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they have a pretty good secondary. They have, they have decent players on defense, not great.
Yeah, and the issue that they
no one wants to
obviously
fucking
had
go to
last year
Cleveland.
was they don't ever seem to finish. They'll keep it close for 3 quarters, but they could not sustain that for the full 60 minutes, and that's what killed them last year. And I don't really think they made much in the way of improvement to get that for this season.
I agree. They're getting Josh Gordon back, right? How many weeks is he gone for, or is he in right away?
He's gone for 6 weeks.
I think it's 4, isn't it?
Or excuse me, 4 weeks.
Is it 6?
4 weeks.
Oh, okay. 4. So their number 1 wide receiver will be Josh Gordon. Then you'll have Corey Coleman and then Terrell Pryor. That sounds like an okay offense by week 5, right? That doesn't sound bad. Everyone likes Duke Johnson Jr., Isaiah Crowell. They're kind of high on those running backs as far as for Cleveland running backs. I'm hoping that we get some like read draws or some read options. Kind of let those running backs get out a little bit more, because then that opens up your passing game. And then, if Gary Barnidge is your number 1 guy, it's just not going to work out for you. It's just not. I don't know if I expect Gary Barnidge to stay roughly the same or to regress, but I got to imagine the touchdowns are less.
I would expect so. The question becomes, you said that Corey Coleman is your number 1 until Josh Gordon gets back. I don't know if that's the case, because if Corey Coleman, if Coleman's going to be playing in the slot, now, granted, RG3 has connected with Pryor on a couple of deep balls so far this year. I don't see. I see RG3 going over the middle and going for Coleman playing up against a linebacker, playing up against the safety, playing up, or a nickel corner, before I see him completing it to Pryor and Josh Gordon out in the flats. Before I see that, I think Corey Coleman probably ends up being your number 1 guy for fantasy purposes.
Right, and probably on the field. I mean, he's, Wes Welker-ish.
Are you saying he's scrappy?
And he's scrappy. He's real scrappy. Like a Julian Edelman or a Danny Woodhead. But he's a fine receiver. I don't know if Griffin. Now he does have kind of a big arm, but he's never really been great at those timing routes. You know what I mean? Like, his best season was like 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions or something like that, and a bunch of rushing yards. It's not really a spread offense type of guy. He should work out. Theoretically, it makes sense in your head. Like, RG3 out of the gun or out of the pistol would do very well. But he's just never been kind of that efficiency guy. Like, and that's why Kirk Cousins took the job, because he's the efficiency guy, and that's what you want. Keep the ball moving.
No, I don't.
Does John have anything to say about Cleveland?
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So we shouldn't have talked about him.
So are we not picking RG3 at all? Are we not picking him? Are we avoiding him? Is he one of the in our draft? He's basically got to be the 31st or 32nd quarterback. Do you think he's that low this year? Because I think it's probably Gabbert or Brock,
because there's so much of his performance that you're going to have to expect is going to come from his legs, and I just don't think he's going to make up for the lack of passing game with, by rattling off 1,400 yards on the ground. It's just not going to happen.
That would be amazing. But yeah, I agree with you. He's probably not going to get 500 is probably what you should expect on the ground from a full season starting from RG3. And if he gets less than that, you should be upset. 500 yards.
So do we all have the Steelers
touchdowns.
Winning the division? And we all have the Bengals coming in second. Do we all have the Bengals as a wild card team?
I'd say they have a good shot. I wouldn't be surprised if they won the wild card or the division. So they're a good team. They're just not exciting. I don't expect them to contend for a Super Bowl. I expect them to take a spot in a playoff series. The Ravens and the Browns could swap, but the Ravens are a better team. So I expect the standings to be very similar, maybe with 2 games difference between Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. I think maybe they'll swap. So not terribly exciting, but you know what is exciting? The most exciting division in sports, the NFC North. It's got the most parity in the NFL, in my opinion. For sure. I don't know if they're the top tier teams. They're just it's the closest 4 teams. Because when I look at this, Minnesota, Green Bay, Detroit, and Chicago, there's not a lot separating these teams. Obviously, I think everyone agrees Chicago is probably the worst team. But after that, there's arguments to be made. Everyone picks Green Bay every year, but last year they won fewer games.
It was
than
the Vikings.
Minnesota did. Minnesota won 11 games. Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. Minnesota was projected to be worse
Jake,
than
I'm
Detroit
going to disagree
a lot
with you when you
last year.
say that this is the division with the most parity, and it might be, but I would point to the division with the most parity would be, you know what this is? They're equal. This is the good version of the NFC East. The NFC East is full of parity too, because we have no fucking clue who's going to win that division. But what this is,
the Dallas Cowboys should win with a healthy run.
Okay,
let's be real. They should win 10 games.
The NFC North is Miss America, whereas the NFC East is like picking the best chef at your local Arby's. Like it's more of a horrific contest that you don't want to be a part of, as opposed to the NFC North is judging Miss America. I am so geeked about this because really, outside of the Bears, because obviously we agree that, you know, John Fox has inherited an absolute fucking dumpster fire in Chicago. Aside from that,
Alshon Jeffrey, by the way, injury nightmare. Cutler, no one fucking likes him. They lost Matt Forte. Jeremy Langford is sliding down draft boards. It doesn't look good.
It's they are the, you know what they are, quite frankly, how we said if we all expect the Browns to win 4 games, and if they win 6 or 7 it'll be an incredibly successful year. If the Bears win 7 games, I think that the people of Chicago should be doing backflips. That'd be amazing.
They can't, because they're from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And they got Polish sausages in beer.
Okay. That's closer to Minnesota. But anyways.
No. They all sound like that.
Okay. They're
all Bears fans.
All
are
of
like
you
that.
people
Believe
are just
me.
garbage in the Midwest. I don't know why you are. Clearly, it's got the most parity. The thing I'm the most curious to see is there any way that Adrian Peterson is going to continue to be able to? Is Adrian Peterson a wizard? How is he able to keep up this level of performance despite being 912 years old? How is he able to do this?
He keeps fit by beating the shit out of his kids in the offseason. You know how hard it is to beat something that runs away from you and fears you?
Is that what he does? How some guys chase a chicken around, like some guys,
or a pig.
Yeah, some guys chase a pig around. That's what he does. He chases his child around.
So, you know what? So, John, I'm gonna let you, as the resident dad that probably wants to beat the shit out of his kids all the time, but has a heart of gold, so he doesn't, because you have teenagers. We don't do that. How do you stay fit in the off season? And do you think Adrian Peterson is a god among men this year?
A child is beaten, a running back gets his legs.
Oh, Adrian Peterson, you child abuser. Anyways, so do you think Adrian Peterson is viable this year again?
It's
hard to bet against the man, right?
Leading rusher last year, as far as fantasy is concerned, and he's
leading receiver
is the
for the
number
Vikings.
1 overall pick going into this year on most people's draft board,
which is insane.
Yeah, and who has him in the fantasy league this year?
I think I do.
That's right, you do. Big man on campus, number 1 pick with the keeper. So yeah, Adrian Peterson is fucking sick. I really, as a Detroit Lions fan, I dread when he comes in. Usually we do actually statistically rather well against the man. Although last year I believe he gouged us in one game just disgustingly. But this team has Teddy Bridgewater.
You asked the question, you said
I'm
who's
not
a worse
counting on it.
quarterback than RG3, and is he going to be at the very bottom? No, Teddy Bridgewater is at the very bottom for me. Teddy Bridgewater is, to me, the worst quarterback in the NFL. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he shows flashes where it's just like, yeah, Teddy Bridgewater, good for this guy.
Well, he doesn't show flashes
then
of greatness,
he just
though.
stops.
He shows flashes of game management. Like, his ceiling is a drunk Mark Sanchez. Like, that's as good as he's ever going to be.
A drunk Mark Sanchez
So a Mark Sandwich.
is equal to...
Yeah, so a Mark Sanchez. Yes, that's what I meant.
Well, no, I was going to say one Rex Ryan, but that's a different story.
No,
he's got a tattoo of the man on his leg.
The best he ever did was, wow, he didn't throw an interception this game. Like, no, you should be saying, wow, he threw 4 touchdowns. Unfortunately, we'll never be able to say those things. But no, his high points were he didn't throw away the game.
Before last season, he finished like the last 6 games of the previous year really strongly through the air. And a lot of people were like, oh yeah, Teddy Bridgewater, and they played... they got trounced in the playoffs, if I remember correctly. So their wide receiver number 1 on their depth chart right now is Charles Johnson. Then then Stephon Diggs, who Lou said by week 4 or 5 that this is a stud wide receiver 1. And Laquan Treadwell, which they drafted this year, is decent. And they also have Cordero Patterson, who just can't get his fucking feet underneath him. And then they have the always disappointing Kyle Rudolph. They really have no weapons besides AP, who is a god. And they have this amazing defense. I don't think that they're in competition to win anything humongously. Like they could win, I don't know, conference. I don't know if they're better than Green Bay this year, who's reloaded basically. But man, I don't know if I'm going with anyone on this offense fantasy-wise other than AP, and you already got him, man. So, do you pick anyone else, John? Is anyone else on there? You look at it and you go, you know what?
So one of the things that usually ends up happening, this happened with me last year, is I think Teddy Bridgewater, I tend to look at him and I feel like he is a lot the same as Tyrod Taylor. They have very similar sort of play styles and work ethics, and I want Bridgewater to be better than he is because I think he can be. A weird thing happened that when watching them last year, I don't think Adrian Peterson and Teddy Bridgewater play well together at all. And I think that Adrian...
Isn't that weird?
They
do look like they don't have chemistry,
actually
right?
Maybe holding
I'm not crazy.
Teddy Bridgewater back a little bit.
I'd say so. I'd say AP's the dependency of that team on AP's running game is definitely holding Bridgewater back. Because the year before when he had that good little stint, I think it was like 6 or 5 games. He had a pretty good ending stint. That was the year AP went down with a knee, right? And then he comes back last year and just blows us all away again. But yeah, I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to be one of those guys that gets a shot unless Peterson retires the next year.
Here's the thing about Bridgewater, though. Bridgewater isn't good enough to compare him to Tyrod Taylor. The thing is, Rex Ryan at least trusts Tyrod Taylor to go out there and make some plays. He trusts him to go out there and throw the ball downfield. He trusts him to go out there and try and thread the needle and try and make something happen. Teddy Bridgewater isn't in a position where Mike Zimmer trusts him to do anything because Teddy Bridgewater... he's so inferior that he never gets a chance to lose a game for you. He's so crummy that they're never going to put him in a situation where he can throw the game away.
That's the reason why they're not putting him in that situation.
You say he's crummy real quick. You say he's crummy. His completion percentage is 65% for 2 years in a row.
Okay. That's
not
starting
crummy. It's his yards average and the receivers and the weapons around him. I feel like this guy is held back by the weapons that he has in the receiving core and Adrian Peterson and the fact that they do a grounded pound heavy defense.
That's where I was going.
That's what you were going to say.
That's where I was going. Is the reason that Rex Ryan can let Tyrod Taylor take shots is Tyrod Taylor doesn't have Adrian Peterson.
He's got
He's
Sammy
got
Watkins.
Carlos Williams.
Who has like 17
No, you're right.
concussions.
But I mean, the argument to me that a good running back, that feeding a good running back is ever going to be a detriment to a quarterback is completely bonkers to me.
Wow.
That is completely nuts.
Well,
to
it's not just feeding a good running back. It's feeding a good running back 327 times.
Yeah. Speaking of which,
That's a lot.
So crazy stat. Just give me a guess. What do you think Teddy Bridgewater, he's still on his rookie deal, obviously, he was drafted 2 years ago. What do you think the total value of his contract is? Just give me a number. What do you think it is?
Total value. Those are 4 years?
4-year contract.
$5 million?
You mean per year?
Did
you
I
mean
get
per
it?
year or total?
No, total.
Yeah.
Total.
John, what do you think?
3.5.
It's 5? Oh.
Wow, I something weird is going on. No, a starting quarterback in the NFL is not worth that much money. A starting quarterback in the NFL, I would expect to be making $20 million over a 4-year deal.
Yeah, he's still on his rookie deal.
Well, yeah, but it's a rookie deal.
Still on his rookie deal don't mean dick. Joey Bosa's getting paid $18 million guaranteed on his rookie deal.
But Joey Bosa got paid as he's number 3 pick, dude, and then there's a pay scale drop. Bridgewater got
Regardless,
picked late, bro.
6.85, only 3.3 guaranteed. Wow.
Yeah, man, that's bad.
That is shocking
That's
to
low.
know it's that low. I mean, that low. If I earn half of that in my life, I'll be extremely comfortable. But no, I put no faith in Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is, now that Nick Foles nor Case Keenum will be starting in the NFL this year, I've got him as my worst quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, he's like. I will say I agree with you, but not for the reasons that you say it. I will say, fantasy wise, he's just held back. It's not going to be good. This is going to be an Alex Smith situation where he goes to another team eventually, or they load him up after AP dies on field, and then he has like 2 or 3 really good seasons, and then he's just kind of a game manager, which is fine. That's probably where he's at. But yeah, no, he's not fantasy viable this year in any format, unless you run 3 quarterbacks.
I don't touch him. I don't touch him. John, I do have a question for you, though, and actually, this is for both of you. So, if it's true that the reason that Adrian Peterson is able to stay young forever and he is able to continue playing is because of the power he gains from beating children, let me ask you this serious question. Who do we hate more? Him or Peyton Manning possibly blood doping? It's Peyton Manning still, right?
No.
Because you have to have money. Here's
Peyton
my
Manning.
thing. You have to have money to go overseas to Germany to blood dope. That's something you have to do. Anyone can beat a child.
It's not just
anyone can beat a child.
Okay, well, what kind of blood doping? There's more than one kind. There's the oxygen enhancing blood
that
doping,
kind,
which
where
is
they put it in the blender and they put it back in you. That one.
the one where it's just enriched with oxygen. That's not a big deal, and I don't know why you'd fly all the way to Germany to have that dissipate by the time you got back. It doesn't improve.
Well, that's where
your
Kobe
fucking
goes to
performance.
do
It's
it. Okay,
bananas. It's cupping bullshit. It's nanobubbles.
Right, but beating children is scientifically proven.
All this fucking acupuncture. Yeah, of course it is.
That's scientifically
so
proven.
Yeah, no, I don't care because it's not like he injected steroids into his throwing shoulder. Obviously, I kind of wish he had because it didn't work out last season. But yeah, no, beating the shit out of your kid is worse than trying to be good at football. Just throwing that out there.
It depends on how much better it makes you at football. I mean, if you can be a Hall of Famer,
I hear you. I
mean, look, the backup
Anyways,
center
moving on.
beats his kid, not okay. Hall of Fame running back?
Maybe it's helping. His knee sure looks
no,
good
child
this
abuse
year.
is awful.
Moving on to Green Bay, where child abuse is really normal in Wisconsin. So maybe he should get shipped over there in his later years. They had one of the most boring drafts. I don't care about any of these players. Do you know who Kenny Clark is?
No.
That was their first round pick. Nope. Me either. So, moving on from their draft, we have the depth chart, which includes some guy named Aaron Rodgers, who, maybe he's fantasy viable. We don't really know. But they also have Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson, who is a white person, so don't draft him. And then they have Brady
Who's
Cakesy,
super fit.
Who just super... He's just
he's super fit now.
he's
He
a
lost like
loaf of a
60
man.
pounds, didn't he?
Dude, the dude is doing like P90X and shit and dieting. This team obviously is the one to beat in the NFC North every year because of Aaron Rodgers. Regardless of what you think, this team could go from 10 wins to 15. It really just depends on how amazing this guy's going to be every day. He's incredible, and I'm sorry to say this because Randy is a guy in our league that Lou just cannot stand, and he is a Packers fan, and it just doesn't end. It just never ends. He would literally suck Aaron Rodgers' dick and pay Aaron money to do so. And it hurts me to say, Aaron Rodgers, you're the best quarterback in the league, man. Always. Like, Tom Brady's there, but you're the total package. Also, you fuck Olivia Munn, which, bro, props. Don't Olivia Munn. You either keep your mouth shut or you agree with me. There is no Olivia Munn's too skinny, or man, she's too nerdy. Fuck you, neckbeard. Anyways, John, how do you feel about Green Bay? How hard is your dick for them? Because let's be real, it has nothing to do with negativity. It's only a measurement of girth. Like when people rape people, then they strap that thing around their dick and then they test them. This is like that, but for love for this team.
The Green Bay Packers, in my mind, are football. I hate to say that because I know that it's a team that you're constantly having to deal with as a Detroit Lions fan. But the fact of the matter is, the NFC North, in my mind, is the division that defines football. When the NFC North is good, the NFL is good. When I think of football, I think of the NFC North. I think of the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. I think of the NFL Films song with the freaking trombones going. That is what I think of when I think of NFC North football. And that is especially what I think of when I think of the Green Bay Packers. They are football. I really think that I agree with you 100%. Not only are they always the team to beat in the NFC North, once again, it will be them and Carolina that are duking it out to figure out who's going to the Super Bowl.
You know, since 1957, I have not seen the Detroit Lions win a championship in the NFL. And I will have you know, I was like negative, like 40 years old when that happened. So, yeah, it just makes me sad that every year we went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. This is my division, man. And this is like, I've had Joey Harrington and Scott Mitchell and just all these guys just try their damn hardest. And it just never works out. And it saddens me, and I can't not respect the Pack.
Well,
though.
And another thing
They're
to consider about Aaron Rodgers is something to take into account is the Packers led the NFC North in drops last year. He had a ton of drops. I think 27 drops. They came in 14th in the league in drops. In drop passes, like I said, led the NFC North, led the division. So he really had a lot of things from Adams and Jones both dropping a ton of balls. That's one area where Jordy Nelson is definitely going to be a welcome sight for him. I don't see the Packers doing anything really differently than they did last year, except maybe having a running game. If Eddie Lacy can get back on track, maybe they've got a running game and that takes a little bit of that pressure off of Rodgers. But at this point, it's their division and it's for somebody to take it from them.
I agree with you. Is Jordy Nelson's knee worrying you as either a fantasy owner or a fan of the team? Or are you worried that he's going to have to be relegated to maybe a small, like not as much of a deep threat, more of a over the middle type of guy, so he's not kind of going up for these crazy catches anymore? Or is that kind of something you depend on? Because Randall Cobb can do that, but he's not as good at it as Jordy Nelson. Or is it business as usual and we just hope for the best?
In a PPR league like ours, quite frankly, I'm always going to take the super high caliber slot receiver over the wideout any day anyways. I'm going to take a Larry Fitzgerald over a Josh Brown I'm going to take if
Sure.
that is the case, I'm going to take a Jordy Nelson because when you're playing over a Randall Cobb, because if you're going to be playing in that position where you're going to be catching 9 balls a game as opposed to 4, or you're going to be catching 12 as opposed to 7, I'm going to take those completions. I'm going to take those receptions over that. So no, that doesn't scare me at all. He had an entire year plus the off season to rehab. He didn't have an injury that led to this. He ended up having microfracture surgery, so it was a proactive surgery. He's had a full year to recover. No, I'm not.
Sure.
I'm not going to be scared away from drafting him. That being said, I've got a feeling in our league, the guy who has him, I think Josh has him, is probably going to end up keeping him.
Aaron Rodgers has games
John?
to make up for last year. He's not going to give Jordy Nelson the opportunity to take a playoff. So I think he's going to be skying just as high as he always has. I think the Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to push the envelope. I'm sure he feels like he needs to be vindicated for what happened with a couple of his games last season. He just looked awful, especially against what was the Seahawks. He had 38 yards passing, I think it was.
It's nothing crazy. Rodgers, now granted, he was victim to a makeshift line, just injuries everywhere. They have a good line on paper if you don't consider the fact that they're fucking made of balsa wood. But if they can stay healthy, Eddie Lacy looks really good. He's number 1 on the depth chart right now. By the way, their wide receivers are deep as fuck. I don't know if people realize how deep this team is. Players like Devontae Adams, Jared Abbrederis, Ty Montgomery, and Jeff Janis, those are number 3 guys on most teams. Like, they're that talented. Jeff Janis went off last year, and he went to Saginaw Valley State University, which is also nearby my old home, my old stomping grounds. Hell of a player, really good guy. He just like, was it the playoff game or one of the final games? He just went off, just crazy. I think it was the playoffs.
That was the Cardinals game, the game that they ended up losing in overtime in Arizona.
That's correct. Wow, bring the heat, bring in the pain, Lou. Anyways, so is there anything else we have to talk about with Green Bay before we move on to the mighty Detroit Lions?
Drops. I'm not talking. You mentioned Devontae Adams is going to be a number 3 on any team. I ain't fucking touching Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams.
I don't like
on
Devontae.
Thanksgiving last year, that game against the Bears. Oh my goodness, that was just atrocious having to watch that. It was truly horrific.
He's a less talented Jordan Matthews who also drops a shit ton of balls. I'm not. Yeah, no, thank you. He's got all the potential in the world, but I don't think he's ever going to get to it. He just doesn't. I don't know. For some reason, he just doesn't seem like a killer like these other guys on the team. So I guess moving on to Detroit, this is my time to shine. This is my time to sell you on why I think Detroit will win a wild card spot this year. Now, I do like their draft. We talked about this again on our draft special at the beginning of this series. I think we all really agreed that we like the picks they went with. We like Taylor Decker, who is actually now going to be the left tackle. They're moving Riley Reef over to right. A'Shawn Robinson should be a rotational defensive line player and probably by mid-season be one of the starting defensive tackles. Miles Killebrew looks good at safety. Graham Glasgow is working on starting at center. And then they have Joe Dahl at guard because Matt Stafford's been getting his ass kicked for his entire career. They really did a good job. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people, and this is my sell job, okay? Hear me out. This is going to sound crazy as shit, okay? Losing Calvin Johnson is good for Matthew Stafford. And let me tell you why while you shake your head at me, except for John, because he's my boy. So, I've been watching the Detroit Lions my whole life. Now, I've gone through some shit. Matthew Stafford is far and away the best quarterback this franchise has ever had. Ever. Easy. Most talented. He's just the best. Now, he's still super young. Yeah, is he?
I think he is, yeah.
28? He's 28. Jesus Christ. He's literally exactly 4 months younger than me. Or older than me. 4 months exactly older than me. So, this man is not even 30 yet, been in the league forever. He's he's continued to look like he's improving, but the problem has been he's had all these he's had so many offensive coordinators and head coaches, and just you know how the Detroit Lions are run. It's this fucking shit show. This year, everything is still the same as last year, including the one guy, finally, Jim Bob Cooter. Say it with me. Who has actually used this team how it should be used, which is a spread West Coast style dink and dunk with big play potential quarterback play, because he's got this big cannon arm. He can fit it into tight spots. It's proven. The third receiver on this team is Anquan Boldin, who last year led the San Francisco 49ers in receptions. Their number 2 receiver is Marvin Jones, who was the number 3 option on the Cincinnati Bengals last year. Everyone agrees he's, got good hands. I think he had one of the best catch rates last year. And he's also, looking at training camp, got a lot of rapport. They did extra workouts in the offseason and stuff right after he got signed. And then Golden Tate, who is definitely a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. He's proven that time and again. When like last year, basically, Calvin Johnson is a decoy for most of the year. He's got 2 years in a row where he's got 99 and 90 receptions. So the guy can catch. And the year before that, he had 1,300 yards. Last year, he had 813 because they moved him over because Calvin was healthy again, so he averaged fewer yards per catch. But this team can do it. They also have Eric Ebron, who didn't rip his fucking Achilles, which is fantastic because he's a huge matchup for that. They also have TJ Jones, Jeremy Curley, Andre Roberts from Arizona, if you remember, who was a viable fantasy wide receiver like 2 years ago. And they also have Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick, Stephen Ridley. And then they have a pretty damn good defense with Ezekiel Ansah leading a lot of categories in sacks. He was like 3rd or 4th in the league last year, wasn't he? He was really high. He had just under Khalil Mack's numbers, if I remember correctly. But anyways, and they also have really, really good corners. And of course, DeAndre Levy is coming back from Since Forever. So, all of that said, the Detroit Lions also have one of the easiest schedules in the league. It's in the bottom 20s of the very easiest schedules according to just all the the last year rankings. Now, that's all that said, of course, they're in the NFC North and anything could fucking happen. But this is an 11-win potential team. I'm settling for 10 with the Packers winning probably 12. And I think they're gonna get a wild card spot, and Matthew Stafford will have a career year. Mark it down. If we had a board, you'd write it on the board.
How does Calvin Johnson leaving make Matt Stafford?
It opens up the rest of the offense.
I'm glad you asked. It opens up the rest of the offense. Now, what happened? Calvin Johnson would basically run a post or a streak, and they would be like, "Hey, Matthew, you have a huge arm. Take a shot." And they do that once or twice a drive. And that's not exaggerating. Once or twice a drive. What that does, if they don't complete it, it's a wasted down almost every time. Almost every time. And so now you're on 2nd and 10. You have no running game. They know it's coming, so they put you in a cover 3. Now you have, you have to get all these yards because this is the way your offense works. Last year, what they started doing when Calvin Johnson was on the bad foot, they started doing this Theo Riddick thing. They started doing, hey, let's get slot receivers in and out of there. We'll move them around, and we'll work these intermediate to short routes and keep the ball moving. And they almost went to the fucking playoffs last year and overtook the Packers, but they just couldn't do it because the start of the season was so bad. Like, do you remember the Thanksgiving game? And Philadelphia, not that great of a team, but they trounced a decent team that day. Trounced. But this team has more weapons. They had like 3 weapons last year. This team has 6. Because Ebron was gone. Amir Abdullah had been benched for fumble issues. Theo Riddick he did not get in the end zone a lot. But now they have Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, and Anquan Boldin. Anquan Boldin, by the way, is one of those guys that every quarterback and wide receiving group needs. He's a leader. And every time Anquan Bolden fucking hits the slot, he's an option. It's just how it is. Old as he may be, he's an option. It's like Steve Smith. You can just count on him. Larry Fitzgerald, he's just going to be there. I would not be surprised if both Golden Tate and Anquan Bolden put up similar numbers to the Calvin Johnson Golden Tate years.
So if
Combined,
what you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, is you're saying that because of the way the play calling and because of the strategy they're going to go about now, with not having Calvin Johnson being that great great deep threat, the team is going to dink and dunk, and they're going to run that West Coast offense the way it's truly meant to, as opposed to trying to mix in that big home run ball, and that's going to save them downs.
Correct.
Okay.
And what we saw last year, while Matthew Stafford ran that offense the second half of the year when Jim Bob Cooter got in there, his by the way, like halfway through the season, he was in the middle of the pack passing efficiency rating wise. He had like a throwing percentage of roughly 60%. He finished the year 67%. Finished the year 67%, playing half the season at 60. It's insane. It's insanity. He threw 32 touchdowns last year. That's a 10 touchdown difference from the year before. And he only threw for like, it looks like 5 more yards. Like, insane. He had the same amount of sacks, too.
So if I'm hearing you right,
And
the
this
way
is all
I
because
interpret this is not, well, the team is going to be better because Calvin Johnson is gone and he was a detriment. The way I interpret that is, Jim Caldwell does not deserve to have an NFL job if he wasn't able to see this, and he's not able to take advantage of it until one of the best players in the history of the team, in the history of the franchise, is now gone. That, to me, is a huge misstep with staff and a huge misstep with play calling and strategy, not with Calvin Johnson. And the entire staff, including Jim Caldwell, shouldn't be allowed in an NFL building if that's what it takes for the team to get better. We've got to get rid of our best player in the past 2 decades.
No, I will say it was Joe Lombardi and Scott Linehan the 2 years before that. And Caldwell, by the way, I don't know if he's a great play caller. He's never really had a history of that. He's had a history of being a decent quarterback coach. So, but he had the benefit of working with someone like a
right.
Peyton
That's like
Manning,
calling Bill O'Brien
a
a great quarterback coach. Well, he worked 7 years with Tom Brady. I mean, come on, how hard was your fucking job?
Right, exactly. So, what I'm saying is, based on his production under the offense, where what I think happened was Jim Bob Cooter got in and he's like, you know what? Let's run what you want to run. And you have a week to do it because they did it over the bye week. And it worked so well, I feel like he's just got control of that offense now. He's calling plays, man. It's great. It's so great. Now, one thing I will say, Caldwell does always look like he's about to get hit by a car in the middle of the night with his face. But the dude has discipline. He knows football, and he's measured. He never sells players out. He's not one of these bombastic guys. So if anything, he's just stability. And if I know the Lions, they have not had that ever. So I'm fine with Jim Caldwell if they have good coordinators. Like Terrell Austin is a fantastic defensive coordinator. This team is my dark horse, not to win a Super Bowl, but if they get into the playoffs,
so I think
they are
that
scary.
5, 6, and 7. Obviously, 6 teams make it to the playoffs. I think that Dallas, Detroit, and Minnesota are fighting over the 5th and 6th spot.
It will be a toss-up between Minnesota and Detroit.
You say that Dallas is
certainly.
in there. So you're saying Dallas won't win the division? You're saying that the Redskins are going to win the NFC East?
Yes.
Then?
The Redskins are a good team, but we'll talk about that. I think if the Cowboys have a healthy Tony Romo, they could challenge the Redskins, but their defense is a fucking joke.
You're right. They're going to have to they're going to have to play like a Pac-12 team. They're going to have to score 40, 45 points a game to have a chance in anything because that secondary of theirs is just atrocious.
The big question, though, is did Detroit do enough, do you think, to address the 83.4 yards per game rushing that puts them 32nd in the league for rushing for last season?
Well, I really like moving Riley Rafe over to right tackle. They bring back Travis Swanson. Laken Tomlinson is left guard. He showed good blocking. Larry Warford's right. And Taylor Decker is known as a run blocker. So I think if Amir Abdullah can play games without fumbling, yes. But you're not looking at the running backs of the Detroit Lions for rushing yards. You're looking at them for receptions and big plays. So I don't know, fantasy. Theo Riddick's your obvious fantasy choice on this team as far as running backs are concerned if you're going there. He's your Danny Woodhead with upside because he didn't get into the end zone much last year. I think once. And if he does, there's huge incentive to get this guy. PPR league obviously is the only way you go with him though, because I don't know if his yards are just going to be up. They're going to move the ball around a lot. So Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, and Anquan Bolden, that's going to be an interesting split week to week. So I don't know if I'm picking them high, but I think they're all viable week to week. It just depends on matchups and how things roll out. So they're scary. Eric Ebron's in the same kind of category, but tight end is a little less competitive.
That was going to be my question. Is how do you
Ebron's
see Ebron? Because Ebron last year, he was kind of that
Ebron, bro. It's a long E. North Carolina, represent. I don't.
Ebron last year was kind of he kind of had that Doug Baldwin syndrome with me, where I'd pick him up and you'd see him where he'd have a game where he'd have, I'm looking at, okay, week 7, he has 13 catches for 112 yards. He doesn't catch more than 3 balls again until week 11. It was just all over the
he's
board.
Streaky.
He was so streaky that it made it hard to have him.
Part of that is he had a thumb issue, so he couldn't catch the ball, so he had a lot of drops last season. And also he's a tight end. Year 3 for tight ends is your make or break year. Usually, if you're not a great tight end by year 3, it's just not going to work out. He shows flashes. I think his ceiling is roughly 60 receptions for 700 yards and up to 8 touchdowns. And this is all best case scenario stuff because of the weapons involved. Now, that doesn't mean he's a bad tight end. It just means he's a top 8 tight end with top 5 upside. Like, you know what I mean? And it just depends on the touchdowns, really, because now, they threw fades to Calvin in the end zone a lot, and that's where he got a lot of his touchdown production from. And Ebron's kind of your guy for that now. Also, I would consider Anquan Bolden going through the slot and going down the middle. He could get a lot of touchdowns this year. So it's scary to pick any of these receivers, but it's going to be a fun team to watch if everyone stays healthy. And that's just the truth. So Theo Riddick's probably your most viable fantasy player. And maybe although I would say Stafford's probably up there. I don't know if he's going to have like top 5 production year, because the touchdowns are one of those things that it's so sketchy with the Lions. They could get to the 2-yard line and like a fullback will run it in, and you're like, why? But they're just so weird. They're such a weird team sometimes. I say Stafford's ceiling is 5,000 yards, which is a great season. In the 70s for completion rates, probably closer to 65, 68, and 35 to 40 touchdowns. But the interceptions are what's going to get you. So we'll see what happens there. But the thing is, a lot of those interceptions, again, they took a lot of shots. So think really good Kirk Cousins is what I'm kind of thinking in my head as I watch this play out. Now, they play in a really fucking tough division with good defenses. So 4 of the games this year, like 2 against Minnesota especially, those are going to be really tough. So, but I'm very excited about this team. So, anything else on the Lions?
No, I think you got it. I think the Lions are a team that are going to make. I'm sold. I was sold before you started your pitch, though. So
I know.
Lou's the one you gotta. There you go.
Lou, are you sold? Lou, are you sold on the Lions this year?
Lou's
Jesus
not sold.
Fucking Christ. Anyways, moving on to the Bears and the final subject of the show today.
So that's all we have for today on Riding the Pie.
Right, they're boring as fuck. Yeah, they're boring. We don't care about them. Expect Joe smoking Jay Cutler memes on the show if anything happens to him. Like if he blows a knee, I'm super pumped. Also, I want to show you guys what happened when I clicked on their depth chart.
It fell into the sea.
Check that out. That's their depth chart.
Yeah.
for those of you who can't see this because you're not these two gentlemen, only the nose tackle position is filled out on the depth chart. Not even Jay Cutler. So I don't know who's on this fucking team. So it doesn't matter. Basically, the only debates that we could possibly have about the Bears, because they're last. It's just gonna happen. If they're not last, all of the other quarterbacks in this division died from AIDS because they were all in the same orgy. Yeah, it's got to be AIDS, nothing else. So, Alshon Jeffrey, Kevin White, and Jeremy Langford. These are the three names that we give a shit about. No one's picking Jay Cutler unless they have to. Are we picking Alshon Jeffrey? He's great, right? But he's such a fucking injury bug. Are you excited about Alshon? I think Jordan in our league has Alshon and is probably keeping him. But any league,
he's getting gambled.
Alshon.
He's gonna get gambled.
Yeah, of course. And assume Alshon Jeffrey's probably a second-round pick in most drafts, right? Because of the name and the production. But is he going to bust because of injury?
At all, personally. I will do everything I can to avoid drafting him, but I think
me.
you're right.
I
think he's in most leagues he's probably going to go second, maybe third, for somebody that
if he goes in the third, if he drops to the third round, it's worth a flyer if you're still waiting on if he's your wide receiver number 2 at that point.
Maybe worth going after.
Yeah, truth be told, I would actually, and this is going to sound nuts, I would actually value Jay Cutler over Alshon Jeffries big time, because we're going to see Jay Cutler Jay Cutler's going to be in a position all year where the Browns are going to be playing from behind all year long. They do not have a running game.
The Browns? Is he on the Browns now?
Bears. I'm tired.
Oh, okay.
The Bears are going to be playing for.
Let's be real. They're interchangeable,
they're,
right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. They're the Browns. I mean, really, they really do match up well. The Browns and the Bears match up as the two teams from each conference. I really see them. They're going to be playing from behind a whole lot. John Fox is going to be trying to do something to keep his job. Jay Cutler, to try and extend his career in the NFL. Jay Cutler is going to be out there slinging the ball around, so he's going to have plenty of opportunities to put big yard games together. Is he going to be throwing 3 touchdowns a week and not throwing any interceptions? No, he's going to have plenty of turnovers. But I'm going to take Cutler over Jeffries right now, because I know that Cutler's probably going to play 16 games. Jeffries ain't. I mean, here's the thing. With Antonio Brown right now, we're doing an over-under how many touchdowns is he going to have. With Alshon Jeffries, we need to be doing over-under how many games is he going to play. And I'm putting that over-under at 5.5. I mean, I don't know what I would put.
If he plays 10 games this year, he was worth the pick.
If he plays 10 games, he's worth a
because you're winning. Pick, yeah. You're doing well in those 10 games. Yeah. So 10 games is really what you're hoping out of Alshon Jeffrey and the pick. He's a great receiver, but the dude just can't stay healthy. So I guess we're all on the same page there. Kevin White, though, he didn't play last year. He's got kind of this Victor Cruz thing going on with his injury. And it's mysterious, and he says he's healthy, and he looked good in college. And so are we going with Kevin White? Is he going to be the guy this year? Is this going to be kind of a Andre Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins situation where we expect Andre Johnson, the Alshon Jeffrey in this case, to do well, but kind of like Hopkins just overtakes him like Kevin White might? Is Kevin White better value?
Kevin White's going to get more opportunities, obviously, with Martellus Bennett being gone, so he's going to get a couple more looks. But is Kevin White the guy who's going to be able to... Is he going to be the big play guy? By no means, no. That's going to be Jeffries. So if you're in a PPR league and you're looking for a flex, I'm looking at White, but are you going to be looking at him as a 2 or even a 3?
I don't know. The thing is, they're going to have to play from behind last year, so he could have this Hearns-esque season, because the Jaguars aren't that good on offense, but they had to throw the fucking ball all the time. I could foresee sort of just production by virtue of being a shitty team.
Sort of like Danny Woodhead was.
Kind of like a... Yeah.
You know what? Travis Kelce. That'd be the perfect comparison to him, would be Travis Kelce with the Chiefs.
Well, they have a really, really great defense, so I wouldn't say they're a great defense, team,
but he's playing with such a piss-poor quarterback who has to check down so much. So...
Alex Smith is a decent quarterback. You'd love him on your high school football team.
I'd love to hang out with Jesse Palmer, but...
Ooh, good looking. God damn it, we did it again.
He's so
John,
hot, dude.
do you have I'm trying to ask John about Kevin White, and you're getting me hard. Okay,
No.
John, Kevin White, yes or no?
I'm not. No, because
No,
yes,
staying away.
It literally
is
is
the
because
Bears?
it's the Bears. I don't think that they're going to do anything at all this year. I think that they're going to be a 3-13 team. Now, of course, that's all anecdotal, but they look like shit. They're a shitty team.
Ooh, that's great.
They didn't make enough changes to do anything. I don't think John Fox has the reins yet, and I think while Jay Cutler is there, the Bears are going to be bad. Jesse Palmer.
Oh, Jesse Palmer's hair is really nice.
He has the best hair.
I was gonna say Lou silently slipped a screen share of Jesse Palmer.
Oh my
hair.
God! Surprised
The fucking-
Jesse Palmer. Surprised disagrees with your opinion.
Even
Jesse
his beard.
Palmer
Look at
is
his beard.
Gorgeous. God,
It's a good looking
the
beard.
beard
It's
I
very
want.
shapely.
Oh,
Yeah.
Clark Kent.
Oh no
Clark
no
Kent, Jesse Palmer.
Get off Clark Kent, Jesse Palmer. We like stubble. Anyways,
Oh my God.
so hair aside, Jeremy Langford. Is this a yes or a no? Because there's two schools of thought here. Okay, the first one is, he showed flashes when that one guy was out, and Jay Cutler, it's the Bears, it could be good. And then there's another school of thought that goes, draft running backs that have no fucking competition. But then I think Carlos Hyde. So Jeremy Langford.
Then I think.
Are you
Theo
drafting it? Assume it. Yeah, okay. Theo Riddick will put up numbers. I don't know about Jeremy Langford. That's the question here. Does Jeremy Langford warrant your draft pick any higher than like round 4? Because he's getting picked really high. I'm not picking him until round 8 in our draft, and we have 2 keepers. So I don't know. So John, what do you think about?
Well, I'm staying
Langford?
away
Are you
from
staying
him.
away
I think
from
I
him,
might
or-
look at him if it gets in a normal league. If he gets to round 5, there's no value in the pick. He's just not going to produce, and I don't think anybody on that team really can this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Lou, are you picking Jeremy Langford?
I'm not touching Jeremy Langford because, like I said, the Bears are going to be in positions this year where they're going to be playing from behind so much. This guy isn't going to see 25 touches a game. He's not going to see 20 touches a game. This is going to be a situation unless now where Jeremy Langford could show value, is in a PPR league where eventually the Bears are in a situation where they're having to chunk the ball, but Cutler has no help downfield. You could see Langford turn into that safety valve for him. I mean, also, like I said, now that Martellus Bennett is gone, and Martellus Bennett was that safety valve for him. He was that check down guy. That's where Langford could have some value. But man, that's a gamble that I'm not going to say I'm going to put on anything like a top 5. Top 5 rounds. I'm not going to put on
his
top
rushing
pick. No,
he was averaging 3.6 yards per carry.
that's
not
acceptable.
Those aren't good numbers.
That's not a playoff team,
Right.
certainly, and that's not a player who's going to take you into the playoffs.
We have Matt Forte putting up better numbers in the same offense, and he's older.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. This is their guy this year. This is who they're going with, and that's fine. I mean, they have Jaquiz Rogers. Kadeem Carey.
Now think about it. If Jeffries goes down and White isn't being productive, and that line of theirs is an absolute wreck,
they have to get the ball to somebody.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Langford could serve value as a check down guy, so he might do what Jamal Charles has made a fantasy living at in PPR leagues, as being the check down guy for Alex Smith. That's what you could see out of Langford. Jamal
Charles is an amazing running back.
Yeah.
Though. Like, genuinely can
Yes.
cut. This is not Jeremy Langford. I agree with you in principle a little bit. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying calling him Jamal Charles is like calling you Jesse Palmer. It's a totally different realms. Oh, you look a little butthurt. It's fine though. I'm not a fan of any of the Bears. If you can get late value picks for them, Alshon Jeffrey is a gamble that he might be willing to make if he stays healthy. But yeah, fantasy-wise, I'm staying away from pretty much this whole team forever and ever. Same with like the 49ers. This is the team I'm putting with the 49ers. The Browns, I think, have more potential than this team to produce fantasy points. How about that? And that's saying a lot. So anything else we want to add to this before we close out the show? We've discussed the AFC North, the NFC North, and of course,
oh, by the way,
Lochte.
he's from Rochester, New York originally. That's where he was born and raised. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, John. You're still the jewel of that.
I'm the jewel.
That city. So, you are the best thing that's happened to Rochester, and Ryan Lochte is surprisingly old, which is it's just super weird for me. I don't understand how that person can be that old. Anyways, so yeah, I think this is probably good. Do you have anything to say, Lou?
I can't tell if I think Henry Cavill or Jesse Palmer would make a better Superman going forward in the DC universe. I think Jesse Palmer.
Okay, you guys can debate that down in the comments. We're going to go home. So for Lou and John, I'm Jake.
I can't tell if I think Henry Cavill or Jesse Palmer would make a better Superman going forward in the DC universe. I think Jesse Palmer.
Okay, you guys can debate that down in the comments. We're going to go home. So for Lou and John, I'm Jake. This has been Riding the Pine, and I apologize. Lou, what the fuck are you doing?